Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be talking about something that's not just Nintendo, it's more gaming as a whole, and that is the idea of loot boxes. Now, I recently talked about loot boxes in like my on my podcast, and there was a video that I posted to YouTube that was a rant about Nintendo including Animal Crossing loot boxes in the mobile game. So this is related to Nintendo, but it's not just Nintendo. So Belgium has said that loot boxes are now going to be considered illegal in that country. So they're talking about games like FIFA 18, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, CSGO. And all of those games will now be considered illegal because unless they remove the microtransactions where you buy a loot box in hopes of getting some kind of whiz-bang cool thing. All right. If they don't remove these things, they are punishable by up to 800,000 euro fine and time in jail. Although I don't know who they decide to pick to put in jail. But my guess is what we'll see here is that in China, the rules for loot boxes are different than they are in the rest of the world. And for China, you have to display exactly the percentage of winning. So when you look at a loot box in China, like on Overwatch, for example, it'll say that it's got a this percent chance of getting a legendary, this percent chance of getting an epic, this percent chance of getting whatever the blue one is, and then this percent chance of getting the gray one that everybody, cries about when they get that. So, that hasn't affected anybody outside of China because Blizzard just changed the game for China. So will we see this affecting anybody outside of Belgium? And for the most part right now, I don't think so. However, this is coming right on the heels of, I think it was last week, the Netherlands declared that loot boxes were illegal. And they didn't mention Overwatch specifically. They were talking about other games where you could, I guess, cash out. That's where you can get some money from the items that you've got in game. So this is really the issue in the Netherlands, is that they didn't want people to be able to get actual money back out of it. Because that is really gambling. And here in the Belgium story, they have slightly different criteria. Let's take a look at it. It says right here, the commission used to decide whether loot boxes constituted gambling were whether or not a game element was involved, whether a bet could lead to a profit or a loss, and whether it was based on chance rather than skill. As a result, they decided that FIFA 18, Overwatch, and CSGO games and games like that, they might be subject to Belgian gaming laws, in which they would then have to get a gambling license in that country. So I don't know how much a gambling license costs, but what this could mean is that that's the solution for these companies, is they'll just buy a gaming license in that country. And I'd like to say that this is done in order to protect consumers, but it almost seems like the fact that you can just buy a gambling license in the country of where, in Belgium in this case, it almost seems like Belgium's just like, hey, we can find one more way to make money off of this. I would like to think that it's done to protect consumers, but it's probably not. It's probably just so that the government of Belgium can make some money off of this. Now, will we see this effect outside? I don't know. It seems like the dominoes are starting to fall. It seems like governments are taking a look at what's happening with loot boxes, and they're saying, you know what, this isn't good for our consumers. So we need to make sure that we protect them from it, or tax the hell out of it one way or the other. And who knows what's going to happen. What I will say is this. How I feel about loot boxes tends to depend on how it's implemented. For instance, in Overwatch, loot boxes don't affect me. I don't care. When I play the game, I'm just there to play the game. And if I happen to get a cool skin at the end of the day, then that's awesome. If I don't, then whatever. I don't care. I don't really care what my character looks like in the game. If I have a cool skin, then I'll wear it, but I don't care. It's just, I'm just there for the fun of it. But games like Animal Crossing, where I was talking about how there's certain items that you can only get through this gambling thing. Now that bothers me. So I don't know what this means for loot boxes in general going forward. I don't know what this means for Nintendo going forward. But I want to know what you guys think about this. Personally, I think the best way for these companies to continue to make money, and that's really what loot boxes are about. It's about them being able to make money because game development costs have absolutely skyrocketed with the new, more powerful machines, and because the price of the games has pretty much stayed steady, you know, 50 or 60 bucks for a very, very long time. We have inflation, and inflation means that 50 or 60 bucks is not actually worth as much as it used to be. So the price of games overall has come down, and the cost of developing games overall has increased dramatically, especially these huge games like Overwatch and CSGO and things like that. And because of that, these companies, and yes, they are making money, but they're trying to make a little bit more money so that they can continue to develop. And I think that they're just going about it the wrong way. What they decided to do is to focus on a gambling aspect, whereas I think doing something where you can just buy the cosmetic that you want for real world money, I think that would actually benefit them more because they wouldn't have this added scrutiny. And, you know, it would also make for a better experience for the player. Now, I will say this: in the Netherlands, they made how do I want to phrase this? They said something about how they wanted to make sure that it never looked like you almost won. And that has to do with like the animations that happen when you open up these loot boxes. And I will say, like, Blizzard is the best at this. When you open up a loot box in Overwatch, or you open up a deck of cards in Heroes of the Storm, or you open up a loot box in, a deck of cards in Hearthstone, all of those games, like when you open them, it's a very satisfying feeling. It looks really cool. It's awesome animations. And in the Netherlands, they might just take that animation out and then you don't have the issue anymore. But I think that, you know, this all started with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Their microtransactions where you would buy loot box, and the things that you got out of the loot box would affect how the game was played. You know, the people spoke, and EA backed off, and they said, hey, you know what? We heard your message. We're not going to do that again. We'll see if they really heard our message, if they really have learned from their mistake. But now, when you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, you know, the loot boxes might give you stuff, but you can't buy the loot boxes with real world money. You can just buy them with in-game credits. And if you want to get the cosmetics, then you can buy those cosmetics with real world money. Anyway, I think that this is a good step in the right direction. I think that this is something that needs to be taken care of. And I think that the ESRB and the whatever the ESRB is over in Europe, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, the PEGI ratings board. I think that both of those ratings board, they need to get in on this, and they need to say, look, if you're going to have gambling in your game, and this is definitely gambling, if you're going to have gambling in your game, then you've got to be rated M. And I think that right there would push a lot of people, of developers, away from doing this. And I always feel like it would be better if the gaming industry would regulate itself rather than having government come in and start regulating it. Now, that being said, it seemed to work okay with the development of the ESRB and the PEGI systems, but, you know, it was a different time. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.